Welcome back to another edition of the Coach's Corner podcast here on iTunes and CodyWork18.com. Great lineup for you to hear today. We're going to talk a lot about Thanksgiving, which is one of my most favorite times of the year. We're going to talk about the best Thanksgiving meals, the best Thanksgiving traditions, and then your overall memories of Thanksgiving. You know, transitioning from a child to an adult. If you're a child listening to this really won't apply to you, but if you're an adult, kind of go back to that whole thing, like when you were a kid, what Thanksgiving was to you at the time. We're going to talk all about that. All and much more, especially the leftovers, which is one of my favorite parts. And then we're going to talk a lot about the NFL. Obviously, the Denver Broncos went into Chicago and won 17-15 over the Chicago Bears. Brock Osweiler stood in for Peyton Manning, who is still dealing with plantar fascia injury, which has kept him out, and which will keep him out an additional 2 weeks. We'll talk about that much more here on the show. Before we get to that, though, I want to talk about something that really changed my life, something that means a lot to me, something that has saved me a lot of money, and that is by switching to Dollar Shave Club. Yes, I said it. When I made the switch to Dollar Shave Club, I saved probably about $20 to $40 a month on razor wear and all the apparel that goes with it. You know, this resorts from shaving cream to razor blades to a new handle, things like that. I made the switch to Dollar Shave Club and I instantly saved money. I got tired of going to the store every single month and noticing that razor blades are now $25 per handle with just one blade, and then not to mention the shaving cream costs an additional $7 to $8. So really, I look at all that and I was like, you know what, I have to make a change. So I was listening to the Talk is Jericho show on podcast 1 with Chris Jericho, who mentioned that he made the switch to Dollar Shave Club, and with that he says he gets a high quality shave with a high quality blade, and they get sent right to his front door every single month. So I was like, you know what, I need to try it. So I put in my first order, a Dollar Shave Club, and I got the very first handle that you can get, which they send 5 blades with you, and they give you a free sample of the shave butter. I got it in the mail in a box, and I went home, put on the shave butter, lathered it onto my skin, and I shaved with the blade, and it was amazing. The effects that I got from it were absolutely phenomenal. It was a high quality shave with a high quality blade. I didn't miss any spots, and the most important thing about it is I didn't have shave irritation on my neck or on my chin or on my where my sideburns were at the time. I didn't have any of that, and it was all because of the shave butter and the high quality blade from Dollar Shave Club. So make the switch right now to Dollar Shave Club, and I promise you're going to save money. You're going to have a great shave. And if you're a man like me, nothing beats a great shave where you're just feeling fresh afterwards and everything feels great. So get rid of the raggedness, get rid of the dull blade, throw it all out the window, and get Dollar Shave Club delivered right to your front door. Go to dollarshaveclub.com and put in your first order and mention that the Coach's Corner podcast sent you, and we'll be very happy to sponsor that in the very future. This is the Coach's Corner podcast, hosted live on CodyWork18.com. And just like that, we're back for another edition of the Coach's Corner podcast, live here on iTunes and CodyWork18.com. Be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at CoachesCoPodcast, and follow me on Twitter at CodyWork18. Stay up to date on the latest news things. I always like to tweet a lot about sports, especially during the games. I get in a lot of heated debates. We'll get to that in just a moment because I've got a great story for you about a debate that I got in this week. But first, I want to cover the Denver Broncos versus the Chicago Bears, where we saw Brock Osweiler and the Denver Broncos head into Chicago a week after losing pretty badly to the Kansas City Chiefs at home. Denver would learn that they would not be with Peyton Manning this week as he has a torn plantar fascia in his foot and will require additional time in rehab. We'll talk about that after the overall game analysis, in which I thought was a very, very impressive game by the Denver Broncos, and mainly from Brock Osweiler in the offense. They really stepped up. The defense played phenomenal like usual, and Denver came out with a 17-15 win over the Chicago Bears, and we're going to kind of analyze the game. Obviously, total yards, the Denver Broncos put up 389 total yards. However, a big thing that really plagued them this game was penalties. They had 8 penalties called on them, mostly on the defense, for 8 penalties for 118 yards in penalties, compared to Chicago, who didn't apparently have a flag or do anything wrong the entire game because they had 0 flags thrown on them. However, the turnover differential, Denver won +2, obviously creating 2 turnovers turnovers against Chicago and then not turning the ball over on offense. Denver did a great job at ball security, by the running backs, by Brock Osweiler, the receivers. And Denver was much better this week on third down, obviously going 6 of 14 on third downs, compared and holding Chicago to 4 of 12 on third down conversions. And then obviously both teams went for it on fourth down at one point early on in the third quarter. Denver went for it on fourth down, didn't get it. Brock Osweiler accidentally tripped Ronnie Hillman on fourth and goal, and then Chicago didn't get it in the fourth quarter. Brock Osweiler came out and had a tremendous game. He went 20 of 27 for 219 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. One to Demaryius Thomas early on in the game, probably on his second pass attempt. It was a 48-yard pass where he threw it probably about 14 yards, and Demaryius caught it, and he made a lot of guys miss, and he ran to the end zone. It was a great play. Very exciting to see. Brock looked very poised in the pocket, and it was exciting to see. Finally, obviously it's not Peyton Manning. We all, nothing to take away from Peyton Manning. We love Peyton Manning, but against Kansas City, he could not step up, and he couldn't step up in the pocket and make those kind of plays. He couldn't avoid a rush. He'd usually just fall down and take the sack. Brock Osweiler was a little more mobile on his feet, which really helped the Denver Broncos offense this week and really propelled them to new heights. So obviously 389 total yards of offense, a very impressive stat. Jay Cutler went 18 of 32, threw for 261 yards, 0 touchdowns, threw 2 interceptions though. One interception by Danny Trevathan, and then Von Miller did a tremendous job, made a very impressive play where he strip sacked Cutler, and then Cutler's arm was going forward. It went off the back of his center, and then it got tipped up into lineman Malik Jackson's hands, and so that was a forced turnover by Von Miller and the Denver Broncos defense. And a big issue that myself and a lot of people in the NFL, including many Denver Broncos players, is the fact that there's so much inconsistency in the officiating lately. And let me go back to the Indianapolis game where TJ Ward hit T.Y. Hilton after Hilton caught a pass, made a few steps, and he got hit. He got blown up really hard by TJ Ward. They flagged TJ Ward for a hit on a defenseless receiver. They fined him for it. And then we look at the Kansas City game the next week, and we saw a Kansas City linebacker hit Emmanuel Sanders, who was a defenseless receiver. No flag, no fine. And then this week, obviously, 8 penalties were called on the Denver Broncos defense, a defense that has been very aggressive this season under Wade Phillips' 3-4 philosophy. They're getting pressure on quarterback. They're playing really tight man coverage, and it's an aggressive defense. However, there's been tremendous inconsistency for this defense in terms of penalties compared to other teams. It's unfair, and then a lot of Denver Broncos players have come out in the media saying that they think that the referees have an eye on them now, that they're out to get them, which you could make a viable case given the calls that have happened to this Denver Broncos defense compared to all these other teams. And if you go back and you study the game tape, you'll be able to see that. So the Denver Broncos defense played so much better this week, and you can't really say that they played bad last week against Kansas City. They made Kansas City kick field goals. That's all you can do as a defense. Is you want to make offenses punt the ball back to you. However, if you can hold teams to field goals, you're doing your job as a defense. And obviously the Denver Broncos offense couldn't get it going against Kansas City. However, Brock Osweiler stood up for the Denver Broncos this week when Peyton Manning was told that he's got a torn plantar fascia in his foot. He'll be out this game, so Brock Osweiler's starting. And then Brock Osweiler comes in, throws 2 touchdowns, one to Cody Latimer, which is great to see Cody get a touchdown, his first ever NFL touchdown. Great to see that. Chicago made this game very, very interesting in the final seconds. There was a lot of bad penalties called, a terrible pass interference called on Bradley Roby, who was just doing his job as a defensive back. He was playing him tough. And Chicago ended up scoring with 24 seconds left in the fourth quarter. And they were down a couple points. They were down 2 points. So if they kicked the extra point, they'd be down 1. So they had to go for 2. Surprisingly, John Fox went back to his conservative approach. It's something that us Denver fans do not miss at all. And he ran the ball again against a stacked box for a 2-point conversion against a very stacked defense. He tried to run it up the middle, and it got stuffed. The Denver Broncos defense, came in, stuffed the play on the 2-point conversion, recovered the onside kick, and took a knee. So John Fox really screwed the Chicago Bears out of a chance to win the game. In a situation like that, you got to try to pass it. The Denver Broncos DBs played phenomenal. Aqib Talib did. Chris Harris gave up a couple big passes early on in the game. I don't know if it was a blown coverage or he just got burnt. I'll have to look at the game film again and to kind of analyze and see what coverage they were in and what front they were running on the defensive line with the linebackers alignment, things like that. So I'll have to go ahead and check that out. Denver did accumulate 170 yards rushing on the ground on 36 attempts, which was a good sign to see the running game going. Obviously, the offensive line still struggled a little bit. You got guys like Max Garcia. Evan Mathis hasn't been that great this year. You got Ryan Harris, who hasn't been that great this year either. The Denver Broncos offensive lines have been very, very average this year, and Brock Osweiler got sacked 5 times, but he showed tremendous poise, and it was very exciting to see as a Denver Broncos fan. You got a guy like that stepping up, and so now Gary Kubiak comes out and names him the starter against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football this upcoming Sunday on prime time, and it's going to be a good game because the Patriots are obviously coming off of a Monday Night Football game that we just had Monday against the Buffalo Bills in a term where they lost a guy. They lost Danny Amendola, has a sprained knee. His status for the game is uncertain. They're already without Julian Edelman, who broke his foot and had to have surgery. Aaron Dobson got hurt in the game. Don't know if his status is going to be good for the game. And then obviously you have the 2 tight ends and Scott Chandler. You have Rob Gronkowski, and then obviously you still have Brandon LaFell, who's still a viable wide receiver option. And then you've got running backs. You got Tom Brady as well. But you do have a banged up offensive line that the New England Patriots have. They have a lot of weak links on the offensive line. They've been as much injury prone as the San Diego Chargers this year at the wide receiver position and on the offensive line. So I'm very eager to see how that all turns out for the Patriots when they go up against the best NFL defense with the Denver Broncos. With a pass rusher, you have Von Miller, Shaquille Barrett. You got guys, linebackers. DeMarcus Ware, don't know if he's going to be playing this week. It's very possible. If he plays, obviously he's going to be a nightmare matchup for some of these tackles that the New England Patriots have. So we're going to look at all that and much more, and we'll cover that game next week on next week's show on the Coach's Corner podcast, and we'll go over the results and the analysis of the game film. We'll break it down. I'll have to watch it, and we'll see how it goes from there. So some golden nuggets from the Denver Broncos versus Chicago Bears. The running game, we're going to look at Ronnie Hillman, who had 21 carries for 102 yards, and C.J. Anderson, 12 carries for 59 yards, and the running game got going, which is very needed. Owen Daniels, 4 catches, 69 yards. Vernon Davis, 6 catches, 68 yards, which is a great thing to see. They got him more accumulated with the offense, got him more reps, got him some more catches, and it's something that, the Denver Broncos could really benefit off of. Virgil Green got some carries, obviously there with the 3 tight ends with Virgil Green, Vernon Davis, Owen Daniels. There's a lot of playing time there between, all of them. Cody Latimer, 2 catches, 22 yards and a touchdown. Demaryius Thomas, 3 catches, 59 yards and a touchdown. He had that 48-yard touchdown catch and run in the first quarter, so that was very exciting to see. And then Danny Trevathan and Malik Jackson leading the team in interceptions. Von Miller had 1 sack on Jay Cutler. Derek Wolfe had a sack on Jay Cutler. Other than that, the Denver Broncos really struggled to get pressure on Jay Cutler and the Chicago Bears offense, whose offensive line is kind of banged up in its own right as well. But obviously, you had Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall leading the team in tackles this week with 7 total tackles by Brandon Marshall and 8 total tackles by Danny Trevathan. And then, very exciting to see that Brandon McManus obviously kicked field goals. He only kicked 1 24-yarder, and then he kicked 2 extra points. Got to get him more involved. I still want to see us, with Brandon McManus kick a record field goal this year. I do believe we're going to see it. I just don't know when. Very excited about that, though. And while we're still talking about the NFL, I want to go through and cover some topics that have been happening this week in the NFL that have been controversial, that have just been, on the headlines on NFL Network, ESPN, things like that, and all over the Twitter sphere. And it starts off in Cleveland. The quarterback situation for the Cleveland Browns has just gotten a little more interesting. The Cleveland Browns have demoted Johnny Manziel, who last week was named the starting quarterback for the Browns. They benched him, demoted him to the number 3 quarterback after a video surfaced of him partying and being out of control at a party during the bye week. And this has been a continued issue for the Cleveland Browns with Johnny Manziel, something that they've wanted him to, fix. Obviously, he's entered rehab before. They think he's battling alcoholism. He's an alcoholic. That's the assumption, and it's very well, fitting to see that's very a likely reality. However, Johnny Manziel was named the starter, and he didn't appreciate the situation he was put in. Johnny Manziel is another example of an athlete who has the keys handed to him and disrespects the game and doesn't take take advantage or appreciate the opportunity that millions of other people out there would like to have. So Johnny Manziel really blew it this time. I don't know what's going to happen. I think his days in Cleveland are numbered. I think his days in the NFL are numbered, quite frankly. I don't think any team's going to pick him up because he's too much to handle. He got away with it at Texas A&M University because he was a college kid. He went to all the college parties because that's what college kids do. He's in the NFL now. He works for a multi-billion-dollar corporation, a corporation that you have to be a role model in, something like that. And he failed to live up to the height, and obviously his coaches are disappointed. So now Josh McCown is now the starting quarterback. Austin Davis will back up Josh McCown, and Johnny Manziel will be the number 3 quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Very, very disappointment. And, with this, Coach Mike Pettin said everyone in this organization wants what is best for Johnny, just like we do for every player in our locker room. I'm especially disappointed in his actions and behavior because he has been working very hard. The very improvements from last year to this year have been tremendous, but he still has to consistently demonstrate that he has gained a good understanding of what it takes to be successful at the quarterback position on this level. It goes well beyond the field. We are going to continue to support him in every way possible, but at this point we've decided it's best to go with Josh as a starter going forward. And as a quarterback, and if I'm Johnny Manziel, it's time to do some self-reflecting. Is it worth it? Is it worth throwing away my career, or have I already thrown my career away? Is it too late to throw this life away? I'm a quarterback in the NFL. I'm making, $1 million. I have a great opportunity. I'm on TV every week. I get to play football, something that I love to do. Am I going to do with that, or am I just going to live the life with partying every single weekend and being a has-been, being a guy who blows all his money on parties, be one of the guys that's going to be mentioned in a 30 for 30 documentary for Going Broke Part 30 in the next 25 years? It's very sad to see, unfortunately, and I hope Johnny Manziel gets his act together. Obviously, with the Cleveland Browns, we can look at the whole situation with Josh Gordon and just kind of hope he gets his situation together too. And it's a case of two guys who had a chance to redeem themselves, who had a chance to be a star in the NFL and to do the right thing, but they still can't find a way to make the right decision. So controversial in Cleveland, and a lot of Cleveland Browns fans are already posting on social media all the craziness, and it's kind of funny to see the reactions that they have. And then in other news, the Ravens have claimed former Chicago Bears quarterback Jimmy Clausen, who played under Mark Trestman, who's the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, and they placed Joe Flacco on injured reserve, who Joe Flacco tore his ACL and MCL in Baltimore's win over the St. Louis Rams this past weekend. He played on it and led them down the field where they kicked the game-winning field goal. So Joe Flacco goes down with an ACL injury. Sad to see, man. I know what it's like. ACL injuries suck. So I hope you come back from it, better than ever. Obviously, I just don't hope you don't. I hope you don't play well against the Broncos. But take recovery well. The Ravens haven't had a good season this year in terms of injuries. They've lost Terrell Suggs. They've lost Joe Flacco. They've lost Steve Smith. It's just been very bad. They've lost Dennis Pitta, who's still dealing with the hip issue, and he may be facing retirement because of it. It's just been sad for the Ravens organization, who's struggled with injuries and just being able to get things going. In the NFL, LaRon Landry, the former safety of the Indianapolis Colts, has been suspended indefinitely by the NFL for violating the performance-enhancing drug and substance abuse policy, which he's had a history of. If you want to Google what LaRon Landry looks like right now, go ahead and Google that, and I'll tell you, his arms are huge. They're unbelievably big, and based on those photos that I saw of how big his arms are, it just goes to show that I don't think he naturally got them that way. And then obviously, if there's a reason that he's been suspended before because of substance and performance-enhancing drugs, there's a reason why he's suspended indefinitely. No timetable for his point of return, so that'll be very interesting. And speaking of timetable for returns, the Denver Broncos say that Peyton Manning will be out at least 2 more weeks as he continues to deal with that plantar fasciitis that he has in his foot. And he went and saw a foot specialist, Dr. Anderson, who said he'll be in a walking cast for at least a week, and then he'll begin doing rehab. So in light of this, the Denver Broncos will work out former Vikings quarterback Christian Ponder to potentially add to their quarterback depth. Obviously, with Brock Osweiler as a starting quarterback, you have Trevor Simon, rookie out of Northwestern, behind him, and you want a little bit more insurance right now. You want to have maybe a veteran guy you can have to back up Osweiler while Trevor Simon develops, which is important. So very excited, anxious to see how that works out. Christian Ponder is a journeyman in the NFL, once a former first-round pick in the NFL. Just has struggled to get things going for his career. Seahawks running back Marshawn Lynch will have surgery on his sports hernia on a Wednesday morning. He'll be out for about a month. Sports hernia is a pretty big thing. He's been dealing with that issue for, the last few weeks. They got Travis Ross, who's been stepping up, who ran for 200-plus yards, this past week, so against the 49ers. So obviously, they're in pretty good hands with the running game. They got a reliable backup, so I'm not too concerned about the Seahawks there. And on a more serious note, I kind of, I saw this today as I was recording, and I saw that the wide receiver for the St. Louis Rams, Stedman Bailey, was involved in a shooting incident, and he suffered a head wound, which isn't considered to be life-threatening, thankfully. But the report says that Stedman Bailey was shot twice in the head while sitting in a car with two younger relatives and his cousin, and ever since he's in stable condition at a Miami intensive care unit. And, they say that he'll have surgery tomorrow, and the driver of the car was shot many times, mainly from shielding the kids from the bullets, and his wounds are considered life-threatening. So at this moment, we want to extend our prayers and our well wishes to Stedman Bailey, his family, the driver who was shot, and anyone involved in all of his family. Very tragic thing. We need to stop this violence. It's getting ridiculous. It's getting pathetic, and there's no place for it. Evil is just around everywhere, and I pray that whoever did this gets caught and is dealt with accordingly. Unfortunately, it's a sad thing to see. And on that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back on the Coach's Corner podcast in just a few moments. You've been listening to the Coach's Corner podcast here on CodyWork18.com. Follow us on social media at Coach's Co Podcast on Twitter, and enjoy the rest of your show.
So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
Yes, please go to DollarShaveClub.com right now and save yourself some money by making the switch from Gillette or whatever crappy razor that you get that only lasts you one or two shaves before the blade gets dull, and make the switch to Dollar Shave Club. High quality razor blades, money saving expenses right here. And the best thing about it is they deliver it right to your front door free of charge. Actually, there's a $3 shipping fee, but that's besides the point. Save money. Spend $5 or less on razor blades every single month compared to the $20, and get it sent right to your front door. High quality shave and everything else smoother than a baby's bottom. And like my good friends over at the B&V podcast, David Boreanaz, Joey Vendetta, we are back on the pod here on a great evening. Great show we've had so far. Talked a lot about sports. Now we're going to get on a different kind of subject matter, and that's Thanksgiving. And this is one of my most favorite times of the year, mainly for the fact that I get to eat so much. And as I said earlier, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm an athlete. Really haven't been an athlete for, quite a few months due to my ACL tear and surgery and recovery. Probably not going to be an athlete ever again. However, I'm the coach, teacher, things like that. And throughout the days, I never get to take a nap, and I kind of neglect on my eating schedule. I kind of forget to eat lunch, forget to eat something here and there, forget to grab breakfast in the morning, always so busy on the go. However, with Thanksgiving break here, I'm able to finally have a week off, let my body catch up to my mind and things like that, or let my mind catch up to my body, vice versa. And I get to stuff my face with food. This Thursday, I get to eat mashed potatoes, I get to eat stuffing, I get to eat bread rolls, turkey, ham, everything else like that. And I'm so excited for it. This is one of the most exciting times of the year for me, simply for the fact that I get to be thankful for stuffing my face with, the best food possible. And the best thing about it is I get to have more than one dinner. So thankfully, I'm blessed in that aspect. I get to have multiple dinners, which means I get a lot of food to satisfy my hunger, and I get to take a long, great nap afterwards, or multiple naps, which is one of the things that I like to do that I don't get a chance to do too often. And if I could recommend it, they say it is healthy for you to take a nap every single day for about maybe a total of an hour. If you could take a total hour nap, then you're in good health and that you're going to be in good standing. So with Thanksgiving coming, fall into a food coma, eat as much as you can, enjoy it, and then take a nap. Also watch football. A lot of football is going to be played. Obviously, Chicago versus Green Bay is the one game that I'm going to be looking at, simply for its terms because it's a big rivalry. Thanksgiving game, Jay Cutler versus Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a battle of two new teams struggling to find their identity. And we get to see the Cowboys taking on the undefeated Panthers in a game that I'm also going to be looking forward to seeing in that aspect, because of the fact that I hate the Cowboys. I can't stand them. I can't stand Jerry Jones. I can't stand Greg Hardy. I can't stand Des Bryant. Like I've told you guys before in previous shows, I like his passion. I'm Jerry Jones. I like Greg Hardy's passion. passion. He's a leader. I think he's a joke. And, Greg Hardy should be thankful that Jerry Jones actually gave him a job. So, on a day to be thankful, obviously Greg Hardy has many reasons. Unfortunately, I don't think he should be in the NFL. I think he's a scumbag. His behavior has been, sickening, obviously hitting women, never condoned. So I don't agree with him. I hate the Cowboys and I hate the Carolina Panthers. I think they're very overrated. Obviously 10-0 is a very great record. Don't get me wrong. That defense is playing very phenomenal. Luke Kuechly, Josh Norman, Todd Davis, guys like that, they're playing great defense. However, they're so average. Obviously on offense, they don't have much besides Cam Newton, who can run the ball, who can throw the ball decently. They don't have that many great wide receivers for that team. Jonathan Stewart in the backfield. I think they're very average, and I think they've skated by, just like the New England Patriots have lately. They've skated by. They've played teams who are very subpar, and, they've also given up big leads. They've went to that prevent defense in games where they had a lead against, the Colts and Green Bay, and they let them teams come back. However, we saw a different approach this past weekend where the Panthers actually kept an aggressive defense on the field against Washington, and it was a 14-14 game at one point, and then it ended up being 38-14 final. Obviously Carolina made the adjustment. They have to stay aggressive, and I was talking with the former Denver Broncos safety Nick Ferguson about this. If you're going to play defense and you cannot play a prevent defense, because obviously to him and I, we both said this, we think that prevent defenses from stopping people. Plain and simple. Because what you're doing essentially is you're creating like a 3 or 4 man rush. You're dropping everybody else back. You have your corners playing cushioned off. You're giving up every little pass in front of you. A receiver can catch a ball, get out of bounds, save time on the clock, and then they can take shots and either make big plays here or there. But I think it's a crappy tactic to go for that. But anyways, back to Thanksgiving. I got so far ahead of myself. I wish I had somebody here. I need a producer here who will actually say, hey, stay on track, obviously follow the show outline. However, so Thanksgiving, obviously I think the best tradition is obviously eating. I think the most, blessed thing that I think a lot of us should be thankful for, and sadly enough, a lot of people don't get this opportunity, is to be in a room with all of your family and all your loved ones under one roof, under one house, sitting at a dinner table together. Something that I think the family ideals have gone far away from, these days is, interacting with family, truly. And, for me on Thanksgiving, there is going to be no cell phones at the table. We're going to get rid of them. We're all going to sit around. We're going to have a nice meal together. We're going to talk about life. We're going to be, say what we're thankful for, obviously for each other, which is a very important thing, and with that, it's just, it's a crazy thing to think of how things are. Obviously you only get a certain amount of time with certain people in your life, so be appreciative of the time that you have with them. So, sadly for me, I will not be with my grandparents who raised me a good portion of my life for Thanksgiving. I'm not going to be there at the dinner table with both of them. I do tremendously miss them. I know my grandma's an avid fan of the podcast. She listens to the podcast every single time there's a new episode. Thank you, Grandma, for listening to it. I love you. I'm sorry. I wish I could be there. However, we're going to have a home-cooked meal here soon, and it'll be like things never ever change. So I love you, and I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving and a happy upcoming birthday. And so many things to be thankful for, and I think an ideal I think that we've lost sight on is to be thankful for family and for friends and for good company. A lot of times we get so caught up in the stresses of life, and I'm guilty of this myself. I'm guilty of getting caught up in the stress of finances and debt. I've taken on a lot of debt from having this knee operation, and it's been stressful. It's been hard to find the silver lining. It's hard to be positive when you have, all these financial quirks going on in your life that are limiting you from being happy. But then again, I realize in the Bible it says don't rely on money to be happy. And, while money will never define me, obviously we needed to get by, but at the same time, I have to be thankful for the fact that on Thanksgiving, I will have a warm place to be. I will be next to a fire. I will be, with people who care about me, who I care about, family, friends, and all the other things. And I'm going to have a decent meal. And I have to realize, and I think we all have to realize this, is that the fact that there are people out there who don't have that. There are going to be people out there who are going to be sitting at a park in the very cold, and they're not going to have a warm meal. They're not going to have people to be around. They're not going to have family or friends or anything. They're alone, and they're out there by themselves. So, we have to be thankful for the very fact that we have a job and we have a duty to be thankful, and I think we have a duty to give back as well. So if you're out on Thanksgiving and you see someone who may be struggling, if you can, please extend something to help them get a meal for that Thanksgiving day. Give back. It's always good to give back. I know there is a struggle sometimes in not knowing if people's intentions are good, if they're truly homeless or they truly need the help or not, because there are a lot of actors out there, especially where I live. However, if you see someone struggling, extend your hand, give them a reason to be thankful, give them a reason to believe and to find inspiration and motivation. So definitely want to, touch base on that. So, before the show, I tweeted out and I asked, someone to tweet me what their favorite Thanksgiving meal or tradition was, or what their thought was on Thanksgiving. And my buddy Levi, who sent me on Twitter, his Twitter name is @LMickeyD, MICKYD, LMickeyD. My buddy Levi, he sent me favorite meal was stuffing, and his best tradition and memory is when the little kids are at a separate table from the grown-ups. And then he said from that point, from when he was little and he was finally able to be old enough to sit at the big table with everybody else. And I can attest to that. So thank you for sending that in, Levi. I appreciate it, man. And I can attest to that. As a kid, you always had your own separate table. You had a smaller plate or something, so it seemed. And you had your Thanksgiving table, and the grown-ups had their Thanksgiving table. And it was just the kids, and the kids would have their kid conversations, and the adults would have their adult conversations. And it was just crazy to see how the evolution of that is. And so as I talked about, your memory from being a kid and growing up to Thanksgiving, now it's, you go and you get to sit at the big table with everybody else. You get to dig in on mashed potatoes. I think my favorite meal, the combination that I have, is mashed potatoes and gravy and turkey. And what I like to do is I like to put a little bit of the mashed potatoes and gravy on top of my turkey, and I like to eat it. It is very, very good. And I think one of the other things that is really good about Thanksgiving is the leftovers. My goodness, it's my most favorite thing in the world is to know that, when you wake up the next day, you have leftover turkey that's been cut up in your fridge, and you get to use that, and you get to put it on bread, and you get to make sandwiches, homemade turkey sandwiches. You get to put a little bit of salt and pepper on it, some Miracle Whip, and you're good to go. Obviously, I think, I can make leftovers last about a week or two. They're so good. Obviously, that was one of the most favorite times of my life. And then obviously, as soon as Thanksgiving's over and you spend those 2 weeks with the leftovers of Thanksgiving food and the festivities and that, you have Christmas approaching. So then all of a sudden you have Christmas dinners, you have, the desserts, the chocolate, the candy, everything else, the dinners. Very thankful for that as well. So, I think that we need to, learn to appreciate what we have more, because there are people out there who don't have what we have, or don't have the opportunity, the luxuries, the little luxuries that we have. So we need to be thankful for that and try our best to extend our hand on this Thanksgiving. And, another thing that always seemed to baffle me was the fact that the day after Thanksgiving, a day that we were thankful for everything that we had, we go out to Black Friday and we bum rush people, and we try to grab things off shelves. We steal things from people's carts just because we want something affordable. Great deals, obviously Black Friday. I think Black Friday is an evil thing. You'll never see me participating in it. I'm more likely to participate in Cyber Monday because it's less stressful. And then, I'm always disgusted by Black Friday because I always see the things that come from it. People are so selfish a day after being thankful. They rush through, they hurt people, they'll rob people, they'll physically assault people to get what they want for someone that they want to get something for Christmas for themselves. And, it causes harm to other people. And I think it's absolutely pointless. I get on Facebook the next day after Black Friday, and I get to see all the Facebook fights that happen at Walmart or any other store. And I think it's pointless. I think it's sad. I think it's one of the biggest problems that our society has, unfortunately, and it just kind of makes me a little sick. So I'm looking forward to the holiday. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving. I don't care about Black Friday. I'm looking forward to Christmas. We're gonna have a great Christmas show. I'm gonna have some guests here on the show around that time. We're gonna have Tomas Edwards. We're gonna have some other guys here on the show, on the podcast. Gonna get the grandma on the podcast, or the grandpa, tell you a lot of great stories about them. They can attest to a lot of great things as well. We'll have that and much more here on the Coach's Corner podcast here in the next coming week. So I do appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and listening to me here today. We're going to look to have a guest on next week for next week's show, probably Coach Les, Nick Ferguson, former safety of the Denver Broncos. Going to try to get Shannon Sharp, former tight end of the Broncos, NFL Hall of Famer. We're going to try to get him on the show as well. So much more. And also I was on the B&B podcast, so I'll play that clip there, my segment in there with those guys, awesome guys on the B&B podcast, David Boreanaz, Joey Vendetta, Drew Ferrante, the producer of the B&B podcast. Go onto the iTunes iTunes store, click on the podcast section, search B&V Podcast, and click subscribe. I tell you, it's well worth it. Funny guys, they always tell a lot of great stories about sports, life, and laughs, not necessarily in that order. And, it's great. It'll help you on your morning commute to work. If the new episode of the Coach's Corner podcast is not up, go ahead and tune into the B&V Podcast and be entertained. I tell you, great guys over there, David and Joey. You are all on my Thanksgiving list. You're on my Christmas card list, and I'm definitely thankful for the opportunity you guys let me be on the show. Definitely a dream come true. So thank you for the opportunity. This is Cody Rourke on the Coach's Corner podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Coach's Corner podcast, hosted by Cody Rourke, live here on iTunes and CodyRourke18.com. If you want to catch previous episodes of the podcast, go to CodyRourke18.com and click on the Coach's Corner podcast tab on the right-hand side, and click on the link where it'll take you to the iTunes store under the podcast section, and you can listen to every single past and previous episode of the Coach's Corner podcast live on iTunes, on your iPhone, or on CodyRourke18.com. This is Cody Rourke from the Coach's Corner podcast.